Alright, so hey guys, so welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a quick look at the long-awaited Opticor Vandal. Now, the only way to get the Opticor Vandal is to get 100 points in the Thermia Fractures portion of the Buried Deaths event, which does take quite some time to complete, because even if you go about it in the most optimal way possible, you will still have to do about 15 full canisters or about 60-ish fractures. Now, the Opticor Vandal requires at least Mastery rank 14 to use, and it is very much a side grade to the standard Opticor. The stats here are well and truly different. The Opticor Vandal does 400 damage per shot, 280 as puncture, 80 as slash, and 40 as impact, which is less than half of what the original Opticor does. And it also lost half of its area damage, because the original Opticor would splash 400 magnetic damage at the point of impact, whereas the Vandal only splashes 200. However, the Vandal does make up for the damage loss with its supporting stats, which are much better. So the charge time is 0.6 seconds, whereas on the original Opticor it was 2 seconds, it has higher crit chance of 24%, higher crit multiplier of 2.6 times, and higher status chance of 30%. The Vandal also reloads faster with a reload speed of 1.4 seconds as compared to the original Opticor's 2 seconds, and it has 8 rounds in the magazine versus the original Opticor's 5. Now, one thing I really didn't want to do with this weapon is to try and dress it like the original Opticor and pretend that it is the original Opticor, and I instead decided to embrace the stats the weapon came with, and that ended up with me using a 2 Forma setup where I've just added 2 Vs. And the mods I'm running are Serration for damage, then Split Chamber for multi-shot, followed by Point Strike and Argon Scope for crit chance, Vital Sense for crit damage, then Hunter Munitions for the 30% chance to proc slash on a crit, and I topped it off with Rhyme Rounds and Malignant Force. Now, on paper, this build is really good, but I wasn't quite sure how well it would translate into the game when I was putting it together, but blimey, it's actually quite strong, like surprisingly strong. It's basically you shoot, you kill for 90% of the enemies you will run into, and for the remaining 10%, it's you proc slash you kill. That's it. It's actually really strong. I was genuinely surprised at how well this passed my personal simulacrum test, because I was kind of going in there like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. And the thing I like about this build the most is how easy it is to switch into full-on fun mode, which I use most of the time. All you do is you take speed trigger, you slap it in there instead of under munitions, and boom, 0.38 second charge time on a build that can massacre the star chart and feels absolutely fantastic to play. Just look at this. Pretty cool, eh? It feels amazing too. This weapon well and truly surprised me, because when I first compared it to the standard Opticor, since I didn't look it up on the internet, it basically went like this. But in the end, I ended up having way more fun with it than I ever had with the standard Opticor, and I think the Vandal fits into the game that Warframe is now much better than the standard Opticor, which makes sense because the Opticor is years old and was made for a game that was a lot slower than what we have now. Now, that's not to say that the standard Opticor is bad and it just doesn't work, it's just a different weapon. It's a lot slower and it does a lot more damage, whereas this is faster, snappier, and it just feels more fun for just generally faffing around, which is what I do most of the time. So I think they actually succeeded in making this a proper side grade rather than being a straight up upgrade, a downgrade, or something that's sort of like, it's kind of like Opticor but not really. So I'm very happy to give the Opticor Vandal a thumbs up. It's a fun weapon that can do a ton of damage and it just feels good to play with. The faster charge time is amazing. The only downside here is that it's a bit of a bitch to farm, because for me personally, the event started getting old after about 10 canisters or roughly about 40 fractures. At which point I was only about 2/3 of the way there, so that wasn't the best. But other than that, it's a really good weapon, and I plan to have a lot of fun with it, so I can very much recommend it. And that is pretty much all I wanted to say about the Opticor Vandal, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you on Monday. Bye bye.